A millionaire and CEO returns to his ex-wife after 7 long years, only to uncover a devastating secret she's been hiding all this time. A secret powerful enough to shatter everything he thought he knew and change their lives forever. But before we dive into this gripping story, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? And don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10 at the end. Now sit back and get ready for a tale full of emotion, mystery, and the kind of truth that leaves scars. A sleek black luxury car rolled to a stop in front of rusted gates. Beyond them stood a forgotten farmhouse, silent, worn, and hiding something no money could buy. Ethan Cole stepped out of the car, his hand clutching a crumpled piece of paper. It had brought him back after 7 years. No return address, no name, just one chilling handwritten line. "You need to see what you left behind." That sentence echoed in his head like a dare. He was a man who had everything: wealth, power, control. Yet here he stood, on the soil he once swore he'd never set foot on again. Something in that letter pulled him out of New York and dragged him back to Willow Creek, a place that never truly let go of its ghosts. Through the gate, a woman knelt in the dirt, tending to the earth. The sun lit up her short blonde hair tucked under a scarf. Ethan froze. Lena Brooks. The name hit him like a punch. His ex-wife, the woman he once loved and lost, the woman he tried for years to forget, and yet there she was, real, radiant, strong, covered in soil but smiling with a peace money could never buy. He stood in silence, the contrast between them almost cruel. He wore a tailored suit and expensive Italian shoes, now dusty and out of place. She wore jeans, worn gloves, and the kind of freedom that comes from letting go. He told himself it didn't hurt. That was a lie. Lena looked up and then saw him. Her smile vanished. Time stopped. She stood slowly, wiping her hands on her jeans, her voice sharp and even. "Well, well, the city prince returns." Ethan swallowed hard, keeping his voice steady. "Hi, Lena. It's been a while, 7 years to be exact." She crossed her arms. "And now you just show up. Why?" He hesitated. "I got a letter." She raised an eyebrow, her tone laced with sarcasm. "Not from me. I don't write to ghosts." His breath caught. "It said I needed to see what I left behind." Lena laughed bitterly. "Then take a good look, Ethan, because what you left behind, it's learned to live without you." The words hit harder than he expected. He opened his mouth, but she turned away, picking up her tools. He wasn't sure whether to speak or walk away until he heard it. A soft, innocent laugh coming from inside the house. He turned instinctively. In the window stood a little girl, red hair, fair skin, and gray eyes. His eyes. Ethan froze, breathless, speechless. Time stopped again, only now it refused to restart. The little girl stared at him curiously. She didn't know who he was, but something in her gaze felt like recognition. His heart pounded. No, it couldn't be. Could it? Lena followed his eyes, and the moment she saw where he was looking, the calm on her face shattered. Her voice was tense, sharp. "Emily, inside, now." The girl disappeared behind the curtain. Ethan kept staring, his mind racing, his world tilting. He turned to Lena, voice trembling. Who is she?" Lena stepped closer, her jaw tight, eyes full of things unsaid. "She's not your concern, Lena." Her voice cut like glass. "You lost the right to ask questions a long time ago." He tried to hold it together, but something inside him cracked. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying you should leave," she said quietly but firmly. "Willow Creek is no longer your place." He opened his mouth to protest, but the pain in her voice wasn't anger. It was something far deeper. It was heartbreak, buried but never healed. He could say 1,000 things, but no matter how he said them, they would all sound wrong. Ethan lowered his gaze, then looked at her again. "Are you okay?" Lena let out a bitter laugh. "Better than ever. And please, don't come back here thinking you can fix everything with charm and money like you do in New York." Her voice hardened. "Out here, life doesn't cash checks. Ethan took a deep breath. For a moment, he nearly told her everything, about the nights he spent haunted by her memory, about the guilt that never left him, about the questions that kept him awake. But her eyes stopped him. Words wouldn't change the past. He stepped back, once, then again. As he turned toward the car, he caught a glimpse in the farmhouse window. She was still there, the little girl. A tiny hand pressed gently to the glass, watching him, studying his face. Something twisted inside him. That look, that presence. It was too familiar. A storm surged within, stirring up wounds long buried. Lena followed his gaze. Her face turned to stone. "This conversation, Ethan," she said quietly, "will have to wait." He nodded slowly, but inside, doubts were already igniting. Sliding into the driver's seat, Ethan glanced back one last time. The curtain moved, and again, those gray eyes, haunting, watching, waiting. The road out of Willow Creek felt longer than it had ever been. On the seat beside him fluttered the letter that brought him here. "You need to see what you left behind." He clenched it tightly, as if he could squeeze the truth from the paper itself. Who sent it? Why now? But the question that burned hotter than all the rest. That little girl, could she really be? For the first time in years, a man who had everything, money, power, control, was terrified of losing something he didn't even know he still had. As the car disappeared around the bend and the sun dipped below the hills of Willow Creek, a small voice echoed from inside the house. "Mommy, who was that man?" Lena answered softly, barely a whisper. "A ghost, sweetheart, just a ghost." But in her heart she knew. Ghosts only return when something's unfinished. Night fell like a heavy blanket over Willow Creek. Ethan drove through the quiet streets, dimly lit by warm yellow windows and flickers of old memories. The town hadn't changed, not really. The same bakery on the corner, the faded sign above the gas station, the same tiny park where he and Lena once sat for hours, dreaming of a future that never came. He gripped the wheel tighter. He should have stayed away. He should have ignored the letter. He should have gone back to New York, where life was predictable, where everything made sense. But after seeing her, those eyes in the window, he knew he couldn't. He pulled up outside the Meadowbrook Inn, a white two-story building with old wooden porches and the scent of time lingering in the air. It was the only inn in town. He remembered. Grabbing his suitcase from the trunk, he stepped inside, greeted by a gray-haired woman behind the counter. Her eyes lit up in disbelief. "Ethan Cole. My goodness. It's been years," he gave a polite, weary smile. "Good evening. Mrs. Patterson, I'll need a room for a few days." She handed him a key without asking questions, but the curiosity in her eyes was impossible to miss. As he climbed the creaking stairs, the weight of every step pressed harder. He had returned to the place he vowed to leave behind forever. And worse, he wasn't sure why he came, but deep down he feared the answer. The girl, Emily, could it be? He dropped his bag onto the creaky floor of the plain, dusty room and sat at the edge of the bed, burying his face in his hands. The truth was, he knew nothing. He didn't know what Lena had been through after he left. Did she remarry? Did she start over? Was the child even his or someone else's? But something deep inside him screamed, no. Those eyes, those unforgettable eyes. Ethan walked to the window, staring out toward the distant glow of Lena's farm. Doubts burned inside him like wildfire. He knew he couldn't just show up at her door and demand answers. Not after 7 long years. Not after everything that happened. He needed a plan. But for the first time in a long time, Ethan Cole had absolutely no idea what to do next. The next morning, the sun rose bright and warm over Willow Creek. Ethan was up early, still adjusting to the silence of the small town. In New York, he woke to honking horns, sirens, and the constant chaos of the city. Here, there was only birdsong and the soft rustle of wind in the trees. He ate a quick breakfast at the inn and stepped out, no plan in mind. Well, he had a goal. He just didn't have the courage to admit it yet. His feet moved on their own, carrying him down a dirt path, past scattered houses. And suddenly there he was, standing once again before the rusted gate of the farm. He froze, turned back. Wait, knock? If you're thinking about ringing the bell, I'm not answering. Ethan spun around, startled. On the other side of the fence stood Lena, toolbox in hand, worn work gloves on, her blonde hair tied up in a messy ponytail. Smudges of grease streaked her cheek. She looked at him with that same mix of amusement and irritation. A look he knew all too well. Just passing by, he muttered. Oh, sure, because New York is just around the corner, right? She rolled her eyes and walked toward the broken fence at the edge of the field. Ethan hesitated, then followed. Need a hand? She let out a short laugh without even looking at him. Doing what? Calling your assistant to fix it for me? He swallowed the jab and stepped closer. You know I can actually do some things myself. Really? She turned, planting one hand on her hip. Name one. He opened his mouth. But nothing came out. Lena smirked in victory and returned to her work. Ethan watched as she tried to hammer a nail into the warped wood. The fence was old, barely holding together. She struck the nail, but it bent immediately. With a frustrated sigh, she pulled it out and tried again. This time, the hammer slipped from her hand, landing squarely on her foot with a loud thud. Ow! Damn it! She hopped on one leg, clutching her foot, her face twisted in pain. Ethan rushed over. Are you okay? Oh, fantastic. Thanks for asking. I love starting my mornings by smashing my own foot with a hammer. It's my new hobby. He couldn't help it. He laughed. Lena stopped, glaring at him. Are you laughing at me? No, it's just... He tried to hide the grin spreading across his face, but it was already there. You are laughing. She crossed her arms, feigning offense. You know, instead of standing there like a statue, maybe help a little. Ethan bent down, picked up the hammer, and studied the fence. Let me try. Oh? Suddenly you're the expert now? She stepped aside, eyes fixed on him. He carefully lined up the nail, took a breath, and hammered it in. Crooked Lena burst out laughing. Wow. The great New York businessman, ladies and gentlemen. Look at those skills. Ethan sighed, doing his best to keep cool. This wood is too old. It needs replacing. Thank you, Captain Obvious. She grabbed the hammer back. Now step aside before you do more damage. He moved back, but didn't leave. He just stood there, watching. She went back to hammering, determined. And then, she tripped over a rock, nearly went face first into the dirt. 7 years of silence. One accidental reunion, and 1,000 unsaid words between them. But this was only the beginning. She caught herself at the last possible second, laughing breathlessly as she shook her head. Seriously, Lena, are you okay? Ethan asked, his voice laced with genuine concern. Perfectly, she replied, standing up and brushing the dirt off her hands. It's just been a productive day. Hit myself with a hammer, nearly face-planted into the mud, and now I've got you watching me like I'm part of a circus act. That's not fair, he said, hesitating. It's just... You look happy, her smile faded. And that surprises you. No, it's just... Thought you'd be different. Different how? Lena folded her arms and looked away. Curled up in a corner, crying. Waiting for you to come back? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? She asked sharply. He didn't answer. Silence stretched between them. Lena sighed and turned back to fixing the fence. But the mood had changed. What was light and almost humorous moments ago had grown tense. Thick with words left unsaid, after a long pause, Ethan finally found the courage to speak again. The girl I saw yesterday. Emily, right? No. Lena cut him off without turning around. We're not having that conversation. Lena, I just want to know. And I want you to leave, she replied, her voice suddenly cold, sharp. She turned to face him. Her expression hardened into something almost unrecognizable. You can't just show up after 7 years and start asking questions. You don't get that right anymore. I have a right to the truth. The truth? Lena stepped closer, her eyes blazing. You want the truth? Fine, you left. That's the truth. You walked away and never once looked back. I was here, alone. I had my reasons. Reasons? She let out a bitter laugh. You chose your career, your perfect life in New York. And now you come back and want to know what I did? He took a slow breath, trying to keep his voice calm. I just want to understand. Then stay out of what no longer concerns you. Her voice was like a door slamming shut. Ethan stood frozen, her words hitting like cold wind. Lena turned, grabbed her toolbox, and walked toward the house. Her back was straight, her shoulders stiff. He had crossed a line and he knew it, but he also knew one thing: he couldn't just walk away. That girl, Emily, he had to find out the truth. And if Lena wouldn't tell him, he'd uncover it himself. As Ethan turned toward the gate, something caught his eye. In the upstairs window, just for a second, the curtain shifted. A child's face appeared. A girl, that same innocent, curious smile, his heart clenched. Yes, he would learn the truth. With Lena or without her. Dawn crept slowly over Willow Creek. Ethan had barely slept. All night he tossed and turned in the stiff hotel bed, haunted by those gray eyes. That little girl in the window, and Lena's piercing words. Every time he closed his eyes, Emily's face returned. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. By morning, he was up before the sun. Bitter coffee, silence, and a decision weighing heavy on his shoulders. He had no plan, just a gut feeling. Sitting and waiting wasn't an option anymore. If Lena wouldn't speak, he'd find another way, and somehow his feet carried him back to the farm. But this time, he didn't go through the gate. He stopped just beyond the edge of the property, hidden behind a small cluster of trees. He felt ridiculous, like a teenager spying on his ex's house, but something told him to wait. To watch, and then he heard it. Laughter. Light, pure, unmistakably childlike, coming from the stream behind the farm. His breath caught in his throat. Emily. And suddenly, everything was about to change. Ethan moved slowly forward, peering through the branches. And there she was, Emily. The little girl was alone by the water, crouched down, fiddling with something in her hands. Her simple cotton dress and oversized rubber boots gave her a childlike charm, though they clearly didn't fit. Her fiery red hair shimmered in the early dawn light, tousled and wild. Ethan stood still, barely breathing, watching her. She was alive, free. Her laughter echoed through the trees, bright and pure, as she stacked stones, talking to herself, humming an unfamiliar tune. There was something almost magical about it, a feeling that squeezed at his chest, leaving him speechless. Suddenly, Emily's head snapped up, her gaze locking directly where he was hiding. Ethan froze. Her brow furrowed, and she tilted her head in curiosity. "Is someone there?" she asked clearly, her voice cutting through the silence. He didn't answer, trying to hide better, but in his movement, his foot snapped a dry twig. The crack sounded like a gunshot. Emily's eyes widened. She shot to her feet. "I know someone's there," she said, hands on hips, her posture bold, just like Lena's. Ethan sighed. There was no escape now. He stepped slowly out from behind the trees, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." Emily eyed him with suspicion, though a small smile played on her lips. "You're the guy with the fancy car, right?" she asked. Ethan couldn't help but laugh. "Yeah, that's me." "And you're the brave little girl who isn't afraid of strangers," she shrugged casually. "Mom says we should be scared, but you don't look dangerous." "You probably just got lost." Her honesty threw him off guard. "Yeah, maybe I did." Emily took a few steps closer, though she kept a safe distance. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I was just taking a walk." "Peeking, you mean?" She crossed her arms, perfectly mimicking her mother's stance. "I saw you behind the trees." Ethan chuckled softly, feeling a little embarrassed. "You're pretty sharp, huh?" "My mom always says I'm too smart for my own good." Emily grinned. "She says that when I ask questions, she doesn't want to answer." "What kind of questions?" Ethan asked carefully. "Like, why don't I have a dad like the other kids?" she said, her voice quiet, almost matter-of-fact. The air between them thickened. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. He opened his mouth, but the words got stuck, trapped in his throat. "But it's okay," Emily continued, her tone calm. "My mom is everything I need. She's the best person in the world. She can fix fences, plant tomatoes, and even start the tractor." "Sounds amazing." "She is," Emily beamed. "And she's funny too. Yesterday, she tripped over a bucket and fell right into the mud. She looked like a swamp monster." Ethan laughed, picturing the scene in his mind. "She must have been mad, huh?" "No," Emily laughed. "She was laughing so hard I thought she might fall over again." They both laughed together, the tension easing for a moment. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the air, distant but unmistakable. "Emily." They both turned simultaneously. Lena was walking down the dirt road, her face flushed with anger, her eyes flashing. "Emily, come inside. Now." The little girl looked from Ethan to her mother, confused, torn. "But Mom, I was just—" "Now, Emily." Lena's voice left no room for argument. Emily gave Ethan one last look, a mix of curiosity and worry, before she bolted towards the house. As she disappeared inside, Lena turned to Ethan, her face blazing with fury. "What the hell are you doing here?" "I just wanted to see my daughter," he replied calmly. Lena took a step toward him, her fists clenched. "Are you out of your mind? This isn't what you think. I just wanted to see her." "See her?" Lena scoffed, her lips curling into a cold sneer. "You have no right to see her. You have no right to be here spying on us and talking to her." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Lena, please." "I just need to know." "Know what?" She interrupted, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. He met her eyes, his voice barely above a whisper. "Am I her father?" The silence that followed was deafening. Lena stared at him for a long moment, her face unreadable. Her eyes locked on his. "You lost the right to ask that question 7 years ago," she finally said. Her voice cold and final. "That's not an answer. This is the only answer you're getting." Inside Ethan, frustration was building. "Why are you doing this? Why won't you just tell the truth? Because you don't deserve it." Lena's voice trembled, full of pain and anger. "You laughed, Ethan. You left and never came back. And now you think you can just show up and demand answers as if nothing ever happened. I know I messed up. I was a fool. But that doesn't change the fact that I have the right to know if I have a daughter. Right?" Lena took a step forward, her eyes flashing. "You think you deserve that right after disappearing for 7 years? You think you can come back and claim something you never built? Something you don't even know is yours?" Ethan opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. Lena took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Leave, Ethan. Go back to your life in New York and leave me alone." "I'm not going anywhere," he said firmly. "Not until I get answers." "Then you'll wait forever." She turned and started walking back toward the house. Ethan stood there watching her leave, the weight in his chest heavy, his mind spinning with thoughts. He knew he'd crossed a line. He understood that Lena had every right to hate him. But he couldn't leave now, not after meeting Emily, not after that strange sense of connection. He returned to the hotel with a heavy heart. The moment he walked into his room, the phone rang. It was Jennifer, his assistant from New York. "Mr. Cole, finally. I've been trying to reach you for hours." "What happened, Jennifer?" "There's a problem. A big one." Her voice trembled. "Several key contracts have been canceled with no explanation. Suppliers are leaving, and shareholders are demanding an emergency meeting." Ethan furrowed his brow. "What do you mean, canceled? Who authorized this?" "No one knows. It looks like someone's sabotaging the company from the inside." Blood froze in Ethan's veins. "Sabotaging?" "Yes, sir. If we don't stop it fast, we could lose everything." Ethan stared out the window, his eyes locked on the shimmering lights of Lena's farm in the distance. He had to go back. He had to catch the next flight to New York and fix this. It was his company, his career, everything he'd worked for the last 7 years. But for the first time in his life, Ethan Cole hesitated. "Jennifer, I need a couple more days here. Sir, the situation is critical. If you don't return now—" "I know." He cut her off, his voice steady. "But there are things more important than money." On the other end of the line, an unexpected silence hung. "Sir, are you all right?" Ethan smiled bitterly. "I think I'm starting to come to my senses." He hung up and sat on the edge of the bed, resting his head in his hands. Someone was sabotaging his company. Someone wanted to destroy everything he'd built. And for the first time in 7 years, Ethan realized maybe it didn't matter as much anymore. Because in the end, what truly mattered was beyond that rusted fence. And he wasn't going to give up until he knew the truth. The next 2 days became a quiet torture. Ethan tried again to approach Lena. He passed by the farm several times, pretending to be out for a walk. He showed up at the local market exactly when he knew she'd be shopping. He even spoke with a few locals, hoping to hear anything about Emily, but Lena avoided him like the plague. Every time their eyes met, she looked away. Whenever he tried to approach, she simply walked off. With every rejection, Ethan's frustration grew. But on the morning of the 3rd day, everything changed. Ethan was having coffee at the hotel when he overheard a conversation between two women at a nearby table. "Have you heard? Lena's having trouble with the farm." "Trouble? What kind?" "A big construction company wants to buy her land. They're planning to build a luxury apartment complex there." Ethan nearly choked on his coffee. The conversation was tense and the air in the barn was thick with unspoken words. "So, is Lena really going to sell?" "Of course not. You know her, stubborn to the core, but they're putting on the pressure, offering a lot of money. If she refuses, they'll try other methods." His heart clenched at the thought. A construction company pushing to buy land in Willow Creek. Aggressive tactics, pressure tactics. It all sounded too familiar. He grabbed his phone and dialed Jennifer's number. "I need information. Does the company have any projects in Willow Creek?" Jennifer hesitated for a moment. "Willow Creek? Let me check." A pause. "Yes, sir. There's a project. They're buying farmland for upscale housing." A chill ran down Ethan's spine. "Who approved it?" "It was signed 3 months ago before you became CEO. The project is being led by Mr. Gregory Hale." Ethan's world seemed to stop. Gregory Hale, his former business partner, the man he'd replaced after a brutal corporate battle, the very same man who it seemed had been sabotaging the company from within. And now, Gregory was trying to buy Lena's farm. It couldn't be a coincidence. Ethan slammed the phone down and rushed out of the hotel. He had to speak to Lena immediately. When he arrived at the farm, Lena was in the barn sorting through feed bags. "Lena, we need to talk." She didn't even look up. "We have nothing to talk about. It's about the construction company, the one trying to buy your land." This time she froze. Slowly she turned around, her face hardening. "How do you know about that?" "Because that company, it's mine." A heavy silence fell between them. Lena stared at him, her eyes flashing with anger. Of course, it's your company," she said bitterly. "I should have known. You didn't come back because of some mysterious letter. You came back because you want my farm." "No, Lena, I swear. I didn't know about this." "Liar!" She threw a feed bag to the ground. "You've always been good at lying, Ethan. Always pretending you didn't care while secretly plotting your next move." "I'm not lying. I just found out that the project was approved before I became CEO. I had no idea." "Oh, how convenient." She crossed her arms. "And now I'm supposed to believe you?" Ethan stepped closer. "Lena, please. I know you have every reason not to trust me. I know I ruined everything between us, but I'm telling you the truth. I didn't come here for your farm." "Then why did you come?" He took a deep breath. "Because I got a letter. Because something pulled me back here. Because—" He hesitated, the words heavy on his tongue. "I saw Emily." The name echoed in the cold, dim barn. Lena's eyes flickered, her jaw tightening. "Don't do this. I just want the truth, Lena. That's all. The truth." She stepped closer to him, her cheeks flushed with emotion. "The truth is you don't have the right to show up here and destroy my life again. The truth is I built all of this myself. Without you, without anyone. And now you think you can just—" She swung her arm out, and in that instant, her foot hit a bucket of mud standing nearby. The bucket tipped, and a thick, foul-smelling brown sludge poured all over Ethan. He froze, covered from head to toe in sticky, cold mud, his arms outstretched, his face dripping. Lena's eyes widened, her mouth dropped open. For a brief moment, neither of them moved. Then, suddenly, Lena burst into laughter. It wasn't a soft giggle. It was loud, uncontrolled, and echoed through the barn. "Oh my God," she bent over, clutching her stomach as she laughed. Oh my God, you look like a swamp monster." Ethan looked at himself in disbelief. And then, against all logic, he laughed too. "Seriously?" he said, trying to wipe the mud from his face. "You think this is funny?" "Very funny." Lena could barely catch her breath from laughing. "Ready for some real work now?" Still laughing, she walked over to the wall and grabbed an old rag off a nail. "Here, so you don't scare the chickens." Ethan took the rag and began to wipe his face. The mud was thick and it was everywhere. "This isn't coming off quickly. Welcome to farm life, Mr. Big Shot." Lena's smile returned, but this time there was something else in her gaze. Lighter, but still wary. For a moment, the tension between them eased. Ethan seized the opportunity. Lena, I know you don't trust me and I understand, but I swear I didn't know about the construction company. I'll do everything I can to stop them from taking this place from you. Her smile faded slowly. Why do you even care? He stared into her eyes, his voice low but steady. Because this farm was always your dream, and because I've already taken too much from you. Lena looked away, biting her lip. The past can't be fixed, Ethan. I know, but I can try not to ruin the present. She fell silent, then sighed. You're covered in mud. If my daughter sees you like this, she'll be terrified. So, can you clean up here? Lena hesitated, then finally nodded. There's a hose outside. There's no hot water. Don't use it. Ethan smiled. Thank you. She turned to leave but paused at the door. Ethan? Yeah? If you're lying, if you came here to take my farm, I swear I'll make you pay. He nodded. I'm serious. I'm not lying. Lena gave him one last look and stepped out. For the first time since his return, Ethan felt. Maybe there was still a chance. Later, in his room at the inn, Ethan opened his laptop and dove into company documents. He needed to understand what Gregory was planning. Hours passed as he sifted through contracts, letters, and reports. The more he read, the clearer the picture became. Gregory wasn't just trying to buy Lena's farm. He was using the project as a means to siphon money from the company. Fake contracts, inflated payments, shady suppliers. If Ethan didn't intervene, it wouldn't just be Lena who suffered. He would too. Gregory was playing a much more dangerous game than Ethan had imagined. Corporate sabotage, fraud, and it seemed personal revenge. Ethan's heart sank. He had to protect Lena. He had to stop Gregory. And he had to save the company. But for the first time in his life, he had no clear plan on where to start. He grabbed his phone and typed a message to Jennifer. I need all the documents on the Willow Creek project, and Gregory Hale's full history from the past 6 months. The reply came quickly. Got it, but sir, this could end very badly. Ethan took a deep breath. It's already bad. It was time to set things right. He looked out the window at the shimmering lights of the farm in the distance. There was Lena, probably putting Emily to bed, completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit her. And this time, Ethan was determined to be her shield, even if it meant losing everything. Ethan woke early, filled with resolve. If Lena refused to accept his help directly, he would find another way. And the perfect opportunity came when Mrs. Patterson mentioned over breakfast that today was market day in town. Lena always went there, selling vegetables from the farm. She did it all by herself. Ethan didn't hesitate for a second. He threw on a simple shirt, jeans, and headed straight for the town square, where colorful stalls were set up beneath old trees. The air was filled with the scent of fresh bread, fruit, and flowers. Lively music, running children, and the hum of busy chatter surrounded him. And there she was. Lena was setting up her stall in the corner of the square, carefully arranging boxes of tomatoes, lettuce, carrots, and other vegetables. She wore a light cotton shirt, jeans, and her hair was pulled back into a ponytail. Tired but determined, Ethan approached slowly. Need help with the stall? Lena looked up and nearly dropped a box of tomatoes. You again? She said dryly. Good morning to you too. He smiled. Ethan, I've already told you I don't need your help. I know, but I'm offering anyway. She studied him carefully, a hint of skepticism in her eyes. Do you even know anything about selling vegetables? What's so hard about it? Lena smirked, but to his surprise didn't brush him off. All right, but if something goes wrong, the responsibility's on you. Ethan grinned, relieved. Deal. Half an hour later, Ethan was starting to regret his decision. The first customer, a sweet, elderly woman, asked for 3 ripe tomatoes. Sure, he said, grabbing the first ones he saw and putting them in a bag. The woman took one, squeezed it gently, and frowned. This one's underripe, dear. Underripe. Ethan looked at the bright red tomato in her hand. Red on the outside, green on the inside. Not good. Lena, standing nearby, tried not to laugh. I'll take care of that, Mrs. Helen. The woman left with the correct tomatoes, and Lena turned to Ethan, struggling to hold back a smile. Underripe? You picked an underripe tomato. They're red on the outside. You need to squeeze them a bit to check if they're ripe. Nobody taught me that in business school. Well, they should have. The next customer was even trickier. A man asked for fresh lettuce, and Ethan grabbed the first head he saw. How much? He asked Lena, looking confused. $3. $3? Lena's eyes went wide. It's $1.50, the man laughed. What, are you trying to rip me off? No, I just mixed up the price. Lena shoved Ethan aside and handled the transaction herself. The customer left, chuckling. Once they were alone, she crossed her arms. You're terrible at this, I noticed. Seriously, impressive. You can't even handle lettuce. All right, I get it. But Lena smiled, a small, genuine smile. And that made it all worth it. Hours passed, and Ethan was slowly starting to figure things out. He learned to pick tomatoes, weigh carrots, chat with customers, and to his surprise, he began to enjoy it. At one point, a little girl asked for strawberries. Ethan picked the best ones, put them in a bag, and handed them to her with a smile. Here you go, sweetie. The best strawberries at the market. The girl smiled and ran off. Lena watched him, her expression softening. You're getting better. I had a good teacher. She rolled her eyes but smiled. In the middle of the day, a strong gust of wind blew over a stack of empty boxes. Ethan rushed to pick them up, but tripped over a carrot and nearly fell face first into the stall. Lena burst into laughter. You're a walking disaster. Thanks for the support, Ethan chuckled. Seriously, how do you survive in New York? There are no killer carrots there. For the first time in years, they laughed together. No bitterness, no tension, just two old friends sharing a light moment. And in that moment, Ethan felt something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. The market was winding down, and they were loading the empty boxes back into Lena's truck. Thanks for the help, she said, her voice sincere. It was fun despite all the disasters. Lena smiled. You weren't so bad. At least you didn't scare anyone. Is that a compliment? It's about the best one you'll get from me. They locked eyes for a moment, and something passed between them. Something old, something familiar. Lena was the first to look away. Well, I need to head home. Can I ride with you? Ethan asked, almost without thinking. She hesitated. Ethan, I know. Just help with the boxes and then I'll go. Lena sighed heavily, but nodded. At the farm, Ethan helped unload the boxes. When Lena walked inside, he noticed the old wooden swing set in the yard, broken with frayed ropes and a cracked seat. Without hesitation, he grabbed tools from the shed and began fixing it. He replaced the ropes, sanded the wood, and tightened the knots. He worked silently, focused, his hands moving with a skill he had long forgotten. Lena stepped onto the porch and watched from a distance. What are you doing? Fixing it. He tested the swing. Now it was sturdy. Remember? She remained silent. Of course she remembered. It was on these very swings where they had once sat, dreaming of their future, talking about the farm they would one day build, the children they would raise, the simple life they would create together. Lena slowly descended the steps, still unsure. Why? Because it's broken and because I wanted to. She sat down on the swing, gently rocking back and forth, her eyes distant. I forgot they were here. I didn't. Lena looked at Ethan, her gaze soft and vulnerable. What do you want from me? He took a deep breath. I don't know, maybe a second chance, or at least an honest conversation. We've already talked. No, we've argued, that's different. She fell silent, quietly swinging. Ethan sat down on the ground beside the swing. I ruined everything. I have no right to ask, but I miss this. Us. Lena turned away, her eyes filled with tears. Don't do this. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I just needed to say it. She quickly stood up, wiping her eyes. It's too late. You'd better leave. Ethan stood but hesitated. Lena, it's already dark and the hotel is far. Can I stay here tonight? She looked at him surprised. Here? On the couch or anywhere. I promise I won't be in the way. Lena crossed her arms, thinking, this is a bad idea. I know, but it's really late. He sighed. Fine, but only for tonight, and you'll sleep in the guest room. Thank you. Lena showed him a small room at the back of the house, simple, with a single bed, a nightstand, and a window that overlooked the yard. Clean sheets are there. The bathroom's at the end of the hall. And keep it quiet, Emily's asleep. Got it. She was about to leave but paused at the door. Ethan, thank you for today. It was nice to have company, he smiled. It was nice for me, too. When Lena left, Ethan sat on the bed, still processing the events of the day. He took out his phone and saw a new message from an unknown number. He opened it, and blood ran cold in his veins. If you dig any deeper, you'll lose both the company and the family you think you still have. Ethan reread the message 3 times, his heart pounding. Who sent this, Gregory? But what did it mean? The family you think you still have? Was it about Emily? He glanced at the closed door where Lena was sleeping, and the room upstairs where Emily lay. Someone was threatening everything he was trying to rebuild, and this time, Ethan was determined not to let the past repeat itself. He would protect this family, even if it meant losing everything. Ethan couldn't sleep. The anonymous message echoed in his mind like a dark warning. He lay on the narrow bed staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out, who was it and what did they mean? It had to be Gregory. But how did he know Ethan was in Willow Creek? How did he know about Emily? The questions piled up with no answers. Suddenly, the first thunderclap boomed. The sound echoed through the house, loud, ominous, as if the sky itself was warning of danger. Ethan jumped up from the bed and rushed to the window. Just a minute ago, the sky had been filled with stars, but now it was covered with heavy, dark clouds. The wind picked up, shaking the trees. A storm was coming, and from the looks of those clouds, it wasn't just a storm, it was a nightmare. The thunder struck again, so loud that the walls trembled. Ethan heard hurried footsteps in the hallway. It was Lena. She was rushing down the stairs. He opened the bedroom door. Lena? She stopped, looking at him in surprise. The storm is getting worse. I need to protect the animals. Let me help. No, I can do it. But then a new crack of thunder split the air, and a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the whole house. Lena looked out the window and her expression changed. Fine, let's go. Quickly, they ran outside. As soon as they stepped onto the porch, the rain started. Heavy, cold drops quickly turned into a torrential downpour. The horses! Lena shouted, running toward the barn. Than followed, shielding his face from the rain. Inside, the horses were panicking, rearing at every thunderclap. Lena approached them quietly, almost whispering, Shh. Calm down. Everything's fine. Ethan slammed the door shut and secured the latch. The rain hammered down on the roof and the wind howled outside. God. The chickens! Lena suddenly remembered. I forgot about the chickens. Before Ethan could say anything, she was already running back out into the downpour. He dashed after her. The chicken coop was on the other side of the yard. Lena reached it first, threw open the small door and squinted through the rain, trying to count the birds. 3 are missing, she yelled, almost drowned out by the roar of the storm. I'll find them, Ethan shouted back and ran off. He waded through the water, drenched to the bone, until he spotted 1 chicken under a bush, another behind a barrel, and the third under an old truck. After gathering them, he returned to Lena. She quickly placed them back inside, locked the door, and nodded. That's it, we're done. But then the sky lit up with a brilliant flash. Lightning struck the barn. For a second, everything was a blinding white, followed by an ear-splitting crash. When they could open their eyes again, the roof was on fire. No. Lena screamed, rushing toward the flames. Lena, stop. Don't go there. But she had already grabbed buckets, filled them with water from the hose, and started pouring it onto the fire. Ethan ran to help her. 2 against the storm, against the flames. The rain fell in sheets. The wind hurled droplets into their faces, but they didn't stop. The fire clung to every board, but the water and rain slowly began to win. They fought the flames for nearly half an hour. When the last flicker of fire was gone, they both collapsed to the ground. Wet, covered in soot, drained of every last bit of energy. The rain still fell, but now it was soft, almost peaceful. Lena looked at the burnt barn and suddenly burst out laughing. At first quietly, then louder and louder, it became almost hysterical. Are you laughing? Ethan gasped. No, it's just ridiculous. She laughed even harder. All of this, it's just complete madness. He looked at her, then at the burnt barn, and at the dying storm, and he too started to laugh. They sat in the mud, laughing like children. We almost died, Lena said, catching her breath. And you're laughing? Because if I don't laugh, I'll cry. Ethan looked at her, and his smile slowly faded. It'll be okay. We'll fix the barn. Lena stopped laughing. Her face grew serious, her eyes cold. It's not about the barn, Ethan. It's about all of this. About the farm. About this life. About you. She spoke quietly, but every word cut like a knife. I loved you more than I should have. So much that I forgot to love myself. And you didn't care. You just left. Ethan felt his heart constrict. It wasn't that I didn't care. I always cared about you. Then why did you leave? Because I was a fool. Because I thought money and success were more important than you. And for 7 years, I've paid for that mistake. Lena turned away. The rain mixed with the tears on her face. I've never stopped thinking about you. Ethan's voice trembled, heavy with regret. I've never stopped regretting it. And now, seeing you here, seeing everything you've built by yourself, I realize how much I've lost. Lena stood there, silent for what felt like an eternity, as if battling some inner storm. Slowly, she turned and walked away, her voice carrying a quiet finality. It's too late for regrets, Ethan. And with that, she left him standing alone in the pouring rain. When the sun finally rose, the damage became painfully clear. A flood had destroyed much of the crops. Entire rows of vegetables were washed away, leaving only mud and uprooted plants behind. Lena stood in the middle of the garden, her face pale, her eyes red, her hands trembling as she tried to salvage whatever she could. Ethan approached slowly, his heart aching. Let me help. No, Lena's voice was sharp, almost pleading. Please don't. She turned to him, her face cold and closed off. You don't understand, Ethan. This crop, it was everything I had. It was supposed to pay the bills for months, and now I have nothing. I can help financially. I can bring new equipment, new seeds. Doe, she interrupted, her anger flaring up. I don't need charity. This isn't charity, it's help. It's the same thing. Lena shouted, her voice raw. You've always tried to solve everything with money, Ethan. You've always thought you could buy your way out of anything. But there are things money can't fix. He stood still, his voice soft, almost pleading. I just want to help. Then leave me alone. Tears streamed down Lena's face. Let me handle this myself. She dropped back to the muddy ground, frantically trying to save whatever remained of the harvest. Ethan stood there, helpless, watching her struggle. And then, in the silence, a small voice called out, Mom. They both turned. Emily stood on the porch, pale and trembling. Mom, I don't feel good. Before they could react, the little girl collapsed. Lena was the first to reach her, scooping her up into her arms with practiced ease. Emily, wake up, please. Her voice cracked with fear. The child was burning with fever. Oh my God, she's burning up. Lena panicked. We need to get her to the hospital. Without a second thought, Ethan rushed to the car and Lena followed, cradling Emily in her arms, the girl groaning faintly in her delirium. Ethan drove faster than ever before. The wheel gripped tight in his hands as he sped through the storm. At the hospital, the nurse quickly whisked Emily away for examination. Lena stood, her grip tight on her daughter's hand, whispering comforting words. Ethan paced nervously down the hallway, his heart racing with worry. After what felt like an eternity, the doctor finally appeared. The little girl has a respiratory infection, likely due to the rain and the cold, but nothing too serious. We'll start treatment and she'll be fine. Lena's breath escaped in a relieved sigh. Can I see her? Of course, she's been asking for you. Lena stepped into the room, Ethan following close behind. Emily lay in the bed, pale but alert. Hi, Mom, she said quietly, her voice hoarse. Hey, sweetheart. How do you feel, tired? The doctor glanced at the files and then turned to Ethan. You're the father, correct? The words hit like a bombshell, deafening in their silence. Ethan looked at Lena, his eyes searching for some answer in her face, but she remained still, her gaze fixed on Emily, unwilling to speak. The doctor sensed the tension and quietly excused himself. Ethan stood by the bed, looking at the little girl who had stolen his breath away. Hey, little one. Hey, mister with the pretty car, Emily whispered, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Ethan managed to smile in return, but his eyes were filled with tears. Lena stood off to the side, torn between the past and present. She saw in Ethan's face something real, something raw, something that reminded her of the man she once loved. Hours passed, and Emily finally fell into a peaceful sleep, sedated by the medicine. Lena and Ethan sat in the empty hallway, the quiet weight of everything between them. After a long silence, Ethan spoke, his voice soft but resolute. "Lena, I need to know the truth." She remained silent, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Please tell me." Lena exhaled deeply, her shoulders sagging with the weight of the years. "You want answers after 7 years?" She shook her head. "It's too late for that." Ethan leaned forward, desperation in his eyes. "I know, but I'm asking now." She looked at him, her eyes shining with an intensity that pierced him to the core. "Yes, Emily. She's your daughter." Time seemed to stop. Ethan's knees buckled beneath him. "I wrote to you," Lena began, her voice trembling. "I sent letters telling you everything had changed. But you disappeared. My family, the lawyers," Ethan tried to explain. "They cut me off from everything. Blocked my contacts, controlled my mail. Convenient, right?" Lena interrupted him, her lips curling into a bitter smile. "Convenient? It was a nightmare." She turned away. "When you left, I was only 2 months pregnant. I didn't even know. I only found out when I started feeling unwell." Ethan hung on to every word, his heart pounding. And it wasn't just one child. Twins. A boy and a girl. His heart stopped. "Twins?" Lena nodded, tears streaming down her face. "The pregnancy was a nightmare." Ethan gasped, his chest tightening. She had been through all of this. Alone, I couldn't do anything. I had to stay in bed, with no one there to help. Not until the neighbor, kind-hearted really, came to care for me. But even then, I had to work. I had to buy everything for the babies. Ethan held his breath. The pain she had endured, the agony of childbirth, the screams, the horror. Lena broke down in tears, her sobs filling the room. It lasted for hours, and when they were finally born, the boy, her voice broke, but Ethan already knew he didn't survive. He died during the birth. Lena wept openly now. Ethan could barely breathe, his own tears falling. Only Emily. Only she lived. Lena wiped her eyes, her face a mixture of grief and anger. "I was left alone, Ethan. Alone, trying to raise her, trying not to think about the son I lost. Trying not to hate you for not being there." Ethan couldn't stand it anymore. He stepped closer and wrapped his arms around her. For a second, she resisted, but then she collapsed against him, sobbing uncontrollably on his shoulder. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Lena, if I had only known. But you didn't know either. And I went through all of this alone. I know I can't undo what happened, but I swear, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." Lena pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I don't know if I can forgive you." "Ethan, I understand." The sound of footsteps in the hallway interrupted them. Doctor appeared. "Emily's doing well," he said. "But I'll keep her under observation through the night just to be sure." Lena nodded, a small, exhausted smile on her face. "Thank you, doctor." When he left, they returned to the room. Emily was peacefully sleeping, her face serene. Ethan pulled up a chair and sat by her bedside. "I'm staying tonight." Lena looked at him surprised. "You don't have to." "I do. This is my daughter, and I've already wasted too much time." Lena remained silent for a moment, then sat down in another chair. They spent the rest of the night together, watching over the little girl who now bound their fates forever. The soft morning light filtered through the hospital windows. Lena woke up with a sore neck, still sitting in the uncomfortable chair beside Emily's bed. The little girl slept soundly, her breathing steady. The IV drip beside her was slowly dripping. Lena rubbed her eyes and glanced to the side. Ethan was also asleep, his head leaning against the wall, arms crossed. He looked exhausted. But he stayed there the entire night. Inside, something stirred. An old memory. The way he used to stay by her side, protecting her, the man she could rely on. But that was a long time ago. Ethan's phone vibrated on the table next to him, its screen lighting up. Lena saw the message by accident, urgent. Emergency meeting tomorrow. If you don't come back now, we'll lose everything. Gregory has taken control, Jennifer. Lena's chest tightened. Of course. New York. The company. The real world. Ethan woke at the vibration, quickly grabbing his phone. He read the message, closing his eyes as if fighting something inside. Problem? Lena asked, her voice cold. He looked at her, surprised she wasn't asleep. Yeah, it's about the company. Sounds serious? Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. Very serious. Lena turned away. So, you're leaving? No, I don't know. I need to think. You don't need to think, Ethan. You've always known what choice you'd make. He fell silent. Just then, the doctor walked in with a smile. Good morning. I came to check on little Emily. He examined the girl, who slowly opened her eyes and blinked. Hi, Mommy. Her voice was stronger. Hi, sweetie. How do you feel? Better. Just hungry, the doctor chuckled. That's a very good sign. In a couple of hours after breakfast and the last dose of medicine, we'll send her home. Thank you, doctor. Once the doctor left, Emily looked at Ethan. You stayed all night? Yeah. Why? Ethan hesitated, glancing at Lena, who was also waiting for an answer. Because I wanted to make sure you were alive, Emily smiled. You're nice, and you are too. Inside, something cracked in Lena. The way Ethan looked at Emily, the tenderness in his eyes, it was real. Not a game, but that didn't change the fact that he was about to leave. He always left. A few hours later, Emily was discharged. They rode back to the farm in silence. Lena was driving, Emily dozing in the back seat, and Ethan stared out the window. When they arrived, Lena helped Emily inside and put her to bed. Ethan stayed in the living room, taking in his surroundings. A simple home, old furniture, photos on the walls. Everything here had been built with love and sacrifice. Lena descended the stairs and found him standing in front of an old picture. They were both in it, many years ago. Smiling by the creek. I couldn't throw it away, she said softly. No matter how hard I tried, he replied, turning to her. Lena, I need to tell you something. She crossed her arms, bracing herself for the worst. I'm being forced to go back to New York. The situation is critical. If I don't go, I'll lose everything. Then I'll go, but I'll fix things fast and come back. I promise. Lena let out a dry, humorless laugh. You always say that. This time it's different, really. She looked at him skeptically. I've heard this story before, Ethan. You always promise to come back. You always say it's just a short trip and that you'll be back. He grabbed her shoulders. I have a daughter. I have you. I have real reasons to come back. You had reasons before. And you still left. He opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Lena stepped away. Go, Ethan. Go back to your life in New York. I won't stop you. Lena, just don't make promises you can't keep. Not to Emily. She went upstairs, leaving him alone. Ethan stood there, torn between two worlds. For the first time in his life, he didn't know which one to choose. 2 hours later, he was packing at the hotel. Jennifer had already booked his flight. He was leaving that afternoon. But something gnawed at him from the inside. Lena was right. He always promised to come back and never did. Would it be different this time? He picked up his phone and started typing a message. I'll be back. This time it's a real promise, but he deleted it without sending. Words didn't mean anything anymore. He had to prove it by actions. Meanwhile, back at the farm, Emily woke up and came downstairs. Mommy, where's Ethan? Lena was in the kitchen, pretending everything was fine. He had to leave for New York, sweetie. But he'll come back, right? Lena hesitated. I don't know, dear, Emily frowned. I liked him, I know. You liked him too, didn't you? Lena sighed. It's complicated. Emily crossed her arms, just like her mom. Grown-ups always say it's complicated when they don't want to explain. Lena couldn't help but smile. When did you get so smart? I've always been. You just never noticed. In New York, Ethan dove into work. The emergency meeting was tense. Gregory had rallied his allies and was trying to force Ethan out as president. Shareholders were nervous, contracts were being canceled, and losses were mounting. Ethan fought back, arguing, negotiating, using every skill he had. But in the middle of the battle, he realized something strange. He didn't care about this anymore. Not the way he used to. The numbers on the screen, the profit charts, the multi-million deals, they all felt empty. His thoughts kept drifting back to Willow Creek, To the farm, to Emily's smile, to Lena's pained look. For the first time, money didn't matter. A week passed. Ethan had managed to stabilize the company, but the real battle had just begun. Gregory was pushing hard and the war was far from over. But Ethan couldn't stand the separation any longer. He grabbed a pen and paper and wrote Lena a short, honest letter. Lena, I've realized. What made me rich can't be stored in a bank. I'm coming back, Ethan. He sent the letter and waited. 3 days later, the letter arrived in Willow Creek. Lena read it alone on the porch, her heart squeezing tight. She wanted to believe. She really did. But before she could fully process the words, Mrs. Thompson, her neighbor, appeared at the gate, a worried look on her face. Lena, dear, have you heard? Hear about what? The auction. They say your farm's being put up for sale because of old debts. Something about taxes. Lena's blood ran cold. What? That's impossible. I've paid everything. I don't know the details, dear. But rumors are flying all over town. After the neighbor left, Lena rushed inside and started sifting through papers. And there it was, an official notice. One she hadn't noticed before, buried under the chaos of everything else. The auction was scheduled for 2 weeks away. Impossible. She was certain all the taxes had been paid. That meant only one thing, Gregory. Forged documents, fake debts. Lena collapsed onto the floor, her hands covering her face. She was about to lose everything. Emily appeared in the doorway. Mom, what happened? Nothing, sweetheart. It's fine. But Emily didn't believe her. You're crying. I'm just tired, Lena mumbled. The little girl came over and hugged her tightly. It's gonna be okay. Mom, I know it. Lena clung to her daughter, trying to believe those words. But inside, fear gnawed at her. That night, when Lena couldn't sleep, Emily came up with a plan. Quietly, she crept downstairs, took her mom's phone, and found Ethan's contact. With trembling fingers, she recorded a voice message. Hi, Ethan, it's Emily. I know you're busy in New York, but Mom needs your help. She won't say it, she's too proud, but we might lose the farm. She's really sad. If you really love Mom, come back home. We'll plant things together. I'll teach you. She hit send before fear could make her second-guess herself. Then, deleting the message, she returned the phone to its place and slipped back into bed, praying Ethan would hear it and come back. Because even though she was so young, Emily knew one thing for sure. Her mom needed this man, and maybe, just maybe, he needed them too. In New York, it was 3 in the morning when Ethan's phone vibrated. He sat in his office, surrounded by piles of paperwork and reports. Another sleepless night, another attempt to save the company that was slowly slipping beyond repair. He picked up the phone distractedly, expecting an urgent message from Jennifer, but instead, it was a voicemail from a number in Willow Creek. Frowning, he pressed play. The voice on the other end was small, tender, and just a little uncertain. Hi, Ethan. It's Emily. I know you're busy in New York, but Mom needs your help. She won't say it, she's too proud, but we might lose the farm. She's really sad. If you really love Mom, come back home. We'll plant things together. I'll teach you. Ethan's heart stopped. His chest tightened with pain. That voice, those words. His daughter asking him to come back, promising to teach him how to plant. Suddenly, contracts, deals, and money meant nothing. He grabbed his phone and called Jennifer immediately. Mr. Cole, it's 3 a.m. I need information about the Willow Creek project. Check if there's an auction on any property. On the other end of the line, Jennifer yawned but started searching. Yes, there's an auction ordered for Lena Brooks' property. Tax debt. The auction was scheduled in 10 days. Who placed the bid? Wait, this is strange. The order came from a subsidiary company, authorized by Gregory Hale. Ethan clenched his fists. That damn bastard. Schedule a meeting with Gregory Hale for tomorrow morning. Sir, he won't agree to that. I'm not asking, just do it. He hung up and stared out at the city lights, which never slept. Gregory had used the company to destroy Lena, forging documents, creating fake debts, all to force her farm onto the auction block. But Ethan wouldn't let that happen. Not this time. The next day, Ethan stormed into the conference room like a storm cloud. Gregory Hale was sitting at the head of the table, wearing that smug grin that always drove Ethan crazy. Ethan, what a surprise. I thought you were still playing farmer somewhere in the countryside. We need to talk, alone. Gregory waved off his assistants. The moment the door slammed shut, Ethan moved closer. Willow Creek, Lena Brooks's farm. It's you, isn't it? Gregory smiled, the kind of smile that made Ethan's blood boil. So you figured it out. Congratulations. You forged the debts, falsified the documents, organized the auction. All according to the law, my friend. Tax debts are tax debts. That's a lie. She paid everything. You forged the documents. Gregory stood up, adjusting his tie. Prove it. Ethan stepped forward. Cancel that auction now. Or what? You gonna fire me? Gregory laughed. Ethan, you're barely hanging on to the president's seat. Half the shareholders are already on my side. Soon you'll be swept away and I'll take full control. I don't care about the presidency. I care about the farm. How touching, Gregory mocked. But it won't change anything. I'll buy that farm for pennies on the dollar, and you won't be able to do a damn thing about it. Ethan's jaw clenched. We'll see. He stormed out of the room and dialed Jennifer again. Cancel all my meetings. I'm going back to Willow Creek. Sir, the shareholder meeting. Cancel everything, he interrupted firmly. For the first time in his career, Ethan Cole chose not work. He chose family. Lena sat in the bank on an uncomfortable chair, waiting for her name to be called. She had only slept 2 hours that night, and had spent the rest of the time desperately trying to figure out how this could happen. She was sure all the taxes had been paid. She had the receipts. Everything was in order. But the bank was claiming debts she didn't even know about. Miss Brooks, the manager, Mr. Palmer, will see you now. Came the announcement over the intercom. Lena entered the office, trying to maintain her composure. Mr. Palmer, she said calmly, I need to understand what's going on. I've paid all the taxes for the farm. I have the receipts. The manager adjusted his glasses and replied with feigned sympathy. Miss Brooks, I understand your concern, but the records show accumulated debts over the last 3 years. If they are not settled by the auction date, I can't help you. This doesn't make sense. I've never missed a payment. There must be a mistake. These things happen. Lena tried to joke, but there was fear trembling in her voice. At that moment, a voice came from behind her. She turned around and saw Ethan in the doorway, holding a folder under his arm. Lena's heart skipped a beat. Ethan, what are you doing here? He walked into the office, keeping his gaze fixed on the manager. I came to fix the problem. Lena stood up, her face flushed with anger. You came to help your partners buy my farm? She asked, with a hint of reproach in her voice. Ethan answered calmly. No, I came to restore what I destroyed. A heavy silence hung in the room. The manager cleared his throat uncomfortably. Mr. Cole, I don't understand what you're talking about. He tried to dismiss it. Ethan opened the folder and threw a stack of documents onto the desk. The papers rustled like gunshots in the silence. These debts are fake, he said flatly. They were forged by Gregory Hale through subsidiaries of my corporation. You're neck deep in this. The manager turned pale. I don't know what you're talking about, he coughed, words coming out slowly. No, Ethan smiled coldly, because these documents show suspicious transfers from your personal account. Payments from shell companies linked to Gregory. Palmer swallowed hard. That doesn't prove anything. Enough for a federal investigation, Ethan snapped. Once that starts, you'll lose your job, your license, and maybe even face criminal charges. The manager stared at the papers, sweating. What do you want? To cancel the auction. Remove these fake debts from the system. Palmer nervously flicked his gaze between Ethan and Lena. I can't just... You can and you will, Ethan said coldly. Or I'll hand this over to the authorities within the hour. The manager took a deep breath and nervously typed something into the computer. A minute later, he leaned back. Done. The auction is canceled. The debts are removed. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. Perfect. Now I'll pay everything that's needed so this farm will never be at risk again. He took out a checkbook and wrote a large amount, covering overdue taxes and a security cushion for the future. The manager, trembling, took the check. Thank you, sir. All right. Now get out of here before I change my mind and call the police. The manager hurriedly exited the office. Lena stood there, unable to fully process what had just happened. Ethan turned to her. The farm is safe. She opened her mouth but couldn't say a word. He took a step forward. This time I want to earn it. Lena's eyes filled with tears. Ethan, I know I don't deserve your trust. I ruined everything. But if you give me a chance, I'll prove I've changed. She looked at him for a long time, then finally nodded. All right, but you'll need to buy even more boots. Ethan smiled. Already bought 3 pairs. Lena couldn't help but laugh. And for the first time in many days, she felt like things could actually be all right. In the following days, Ethan officially moved to Willow Creek. He rented a small house near the farm and began working alongside Lena. He learned how to plant, water, fix fences. He knocked over tomatoes, tripped on hoses, got covered in dirt from head to toe, and Lena laughed. You're terrible at this, she yelled as he watered the wrong plants. I'm learning. You're ruining my garden. But despite the teasing, something had changed between them. A lightness, a connection that once seemed impossible. The evenings when they had dinner together, Ethan finally said, I want to tell Emily that I'm her father. Lena fell silent, setting down her fork. Ethan, she deserves to know. I know, he replied, but Lena hesitated. What if you leave again? I won't. How can I be sure? He took her hand. Because now I know what truly matters. And it's not New York. Lena said nothing, torn by doubt. Just wait a little longer, please. Ethan nodded, though disappointed. All right, I'll wait. But a few days later, Willow Creek's peace was once again disrupted. A man in a flawless suit arrived in town, asking questions and inspecting properties. He called himself an investor, interested in purchasing land. When he finally appeared at Lena's farm, a chill ran down Ethan's spine. There was something familiar and dangerous about the man, and Ethan knew the fight was far from over. The man stepped out of a car, black, so polished it looked untouched by any dirt road. Lena was in the yard, hanging laundry, when she heard the engine. Emily played nearby, chasing butterflies. The man exited the car gracefully. A perfectly tailored gray suit, shiny Italian shoes gleaming in the sunlight, neatly combed hair. He smiled politely, but his smile was hollow, like a salesman's. Good morning, he waved. My name is Victor Hale. I'm looking for the owner of this lovely farm. Lena set down the laundry basket and walked over, wiping her hands on her apron. That's me. Lena Brooks. How can I help you? Victor extended his hand. Lena shook it, noting how soft his palm was, no calluses, no sign of labor. A pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Brooks. I'm a real estate investor, very interested in rural properties in this region. Oh, Lena crossed her arms. And what would a big city investor want in Willow Creek? Oh, this town has incredible potential. Victor gestured grandly. Fresh air, beautiful scenery. It's perfect for tourism. And your farm, he added, glancing around, clearly evaluating. Your land is a key piece. A key piece of what? Lena asked. A project that will bring prosperity to the entire region. Boutique hotels, restaurants, recreation areas. Lena cut him off. And you want to buy my land for that? Precisely, as Victor smiled wide. And I'm prepared to offer a very generous sum, well above market value. Lena studied him carefully, her face unreadable. It's not for sale. Victor's smile faltered for a moment. Mrs. Brooks, perhaps you didn't understand. I'm talking about enough money for you and your daughter to live comfortably for the rest of your lives. I understood perfectly, Lena replied firmly. But the answer is still no. Victor adjusted his tie, clearly not used to hearing no. May I ask why? Because this farm isn't just a piece of land. It's my home. My daughter grew up here. I built my life here. Lena took a step closer. And I already almost lost this farm once. I won't let it happen again. Victor kept smiling, but tension now sparked behind his eyes. I understand your sentimentality, but Mrs. Brooks, sometimes it's important to be pragmatic. The money I'm offering can buy you a new house, a new life, but you can't buy memories. You can't buy roots. Lena tilted her head. And if I'm honest, you look more like a mannequin from a store than someone who understands anything about the land. Emily, who had been listening to their conversation, laughed. Victor flushed. A mannequin? Yes, all clean and neat, not a hair out of place. Shoes that shine like mirrors. I'm sure you've never planted anything in your life except bad ideas into other people's heads. Ethan, who was walking from the barn, overheard the last remark and almost laughed out loud. Victor noticed him and his expression shifted slightly. Recognition and something else. Ethan Cole. Well, this is a surprise. Lena shifted her gaze between the two, confused. You two know each other? Ethan stepped closer, standing up straighter. I know the Hale name. Are you related to Gregory Hale? Victor smiled. My cousin, but it's just a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. Well, the business world is small, Mr. Cole. Victor turned back to Lena. Mrs. Brooks, I'll leave my business card. If you change your mind, don't hesitate to call. The offer stands. He handed her the card and walked back to his car, driving off down the same dirt road, with the same calculating elegance with which he had arrived. When the car disappeared, Lena turned to Ethan. Who was that? Trouble? Ethan answered, his face tense. That night, Ethan called Jennifer. I need everything on Victor Hale. Everything already working on it, sir. He appeared out of nowhere a couple of months ago, making aggressive investments in rural areas, always in partnership with, Gregory Hale. Ethan closed his eyes. Of course. It looks like they're using Lena's farm as leverage. If they manage to buy it, they'll control the whole region and pressure other landowners, including me. Exactly. Gregory knows you care about this farm. He's using that against you. Ethan hung up, unable to hide his anger. Gregory won't let go. He's playing dirty, using my family as pawns, and I have to protect Lena without letting her know. But as always, Lena wasn't so easily deceived. 2 days later, Lena came to see Ethan, arms crossed. We need to talk. Ethan was just about to put away his tools, but stopped when he saw her expression. About what? About Victor Hale? About Gregory Hale. And about the things you're not telling me? Lena, don't even try. She walked into the house. I saw the way you looked at that man. I know something's wrong, and I deserve to know what it is. Ethan set down the tools and sat down. Victor is Gregory's cousin. They're working together and they're using your farm to get to me. If they buy your land, they'll control the entire area. They'll be able to blackmail me, push me out of the company, destroy everything. Lena fell silent, trying to process what he'd said. So they want my farm because of you? Not exactly. They want the farm anyway, but they're using my connection to you as an extra advantage. My connection to you. Lena repeated quietly. Because now I'm your weakness. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, she exploded. Emily and I became targets because you came back. Because you decided to be a farmer, and your enemies are using us as pawns in their corporate game. Lena, I'm trying to protect you. Protect us? She laughed bitterly. You bring danger. First Gregory, now Victor. Who knows who else will show up? Ethan stood up. I won't let anything happen to you or Emily. You can't promise that, Lena shouted, tears filling her eyes. You can't just show up here, turn my life upside down, and promise to protect everything. I'm trying. Trying isn't enough. A heavy, painful silence fell between them. Lena took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. I trusted you over and over. You kept things from me. I was just trying not to worry you. I don't need you to protect me from the truth. Ethan needed to be honest. He opened his mouth but couldn't find the right words. Lena shook her head, disappointed. I thought this time it would be different. I thought you had really changed. I have changed. Changed? She looked at him intently. People who change don't hide the truth. They don't play games. They don't think others are too weak to handle reality. Lena, please. She turned to leave but stopped at the door. I need time to think about everything. How much time? I don't know. She glanced at him with tired eyes. I just know this can't go on anymore. Always waiting for the next secret you're hiding. And she left, leaving Ethan alone again. He sank onto the bench, his head in his hands. He'd messed it up again. He tried to protect Lena by hiding the truth, but all he did was push her away. For the first time, Ethan wondered if he really deserved a second chance, or if his destiny was to ruin everything he touched. That night, Lena lay awake. She sat on the porch, gazing at the stars, trying to make sense of her thoughts. Gidon lied again, or at least hid something from me, and it hurt more than I wanted to admit. You never change, Ethan, she whispered to the wind. There's always something you don't tell me. The next morning, Ethan appeared at the farmhouse door. Lena saw him through the window and almost didn't answer, but Emily ran ahead. The girl smiled and opened the door. Hi, sunshine. Is Mom home? Behind Emily, Lena appeared, arms crossed. What do you want to talk about? Please, we've already talked. No, you talked and I listened. Now it's my turn to talk and you listen. Emily looked at them both in confusion. Mommy, why are you arguing? We're not arguing, sweetheart. It's just the same complicated subject. Emily rolled her eyes just like her mom. Lena couldn't help but smile. Eitan decided to take the risk. Lena, I know I was wrong. I should have told you about Victor right away, but I was trying to protect you. Protect me? Lena gave a bitter laugh. That's not protection, Eitan. That's control. You're right, I know. And I'm sorry. Apologies won't change the fact that you always do this. You always decide for me. You always hide things. You always think you know better. Lena's voice grew louder and Emily started to get scared. Mommy. Emily, go to your room, Lena said more sternly than she meant to. The little girl ran off, tears streaming down her cheeks. Didn't look toward the direction she'd gone, his heart aching. Lena, she's crying, he exclaimed. But I can't do this anymore, Lena yelled, her voice breaking. I can't keep waiting for the next secret you're hiding. Her voice cracked. Eitan stepped toward her, but Lena stepped back. No, I need space. I need to think. And she went inside, closing the door behind her. Eitan was left alone in the yard, hearing Emily's sobs from the barn. He made a decision. He found Emily sitting in the corner of the barn, hugging her knees and crying. Emily, he said cautiously. The girl looked up, her face red and wet with tears. Are you leaving again? The words hit Eitan like a punch. What? That's what grown-ups do when they fight. They leave. Eitan sat down next to her. I'm not leaving. I promise. He took a deep breath. Emily, I need to tell you something. Something very important. She looked at him curiously. What? I'm your father. A silence fell between them. Emily blinked, trying to understand. My dad. Yes, when I left a long time ago, I didn't know you existed. I didn't know your mom was pregnant. If I had known, I never would have left. So, you didn't leave me on purpose? No, never. And now that I know you're here, I'm not going anywhere. Emily remained silent, her tears still flowing. I know I made mistakes, Eitan continued, his voice trembling, but I don't want to lose you and your mom again. The girl stared at him for a long moment, and then something changed in her eyes. Slowly, the tears started to stop as she processed his words. Then slowly, she approached and hugged him. Eitan held her tightly in return and finally allowed his tears to flow. I always wanted a dad, Emily whispered, and I always wanted a daughter. I just didn't know, Eitan replied. They sat there holding each other until Emily pulled away. Can we tell Mom? She asked. She already knows, but maybe we should say it together. Emily nodded and took his hand. They went back into the house together. Lena was standing in the kitchen, wiping her eyes when she saw them entering, hand in hand. Her heart tightened. Mom, Emily said seriously. Eitan said he's my dad. Lena looked at Eitan in surprise. Emily, it's okay. Sweetheart, she reassured her. The girl smiled. I understand, and I'm happy. Lena knelt down and hugged her daughter. Are you sure? Sure, Emily replied, pulling back. And I think you should forgive him too. He really regrets everything. Lena looked at Eitan, standing by the door, vulnerable and sincere. She suddenly realized he had changed. This was no longer the arrogant man who had left 7 years ago. He had really changed. Eitan, she began. I know I'm making a mistake again, but I'll spend my whole life making it right. She sighed. Tired of battling her feelings, you're just unbearable. I know. Stubborn. And that too. And a fool, definitely. Emily laughed. Lena finally smiled. All right, but no more secrets. Never again, I promise. The next day, a meeting was held at the Willow Creek Town Hall. Victor Hale was trying to convince landowners to sell their plots. But Eitan had other plans. He walked into the hall holding documents and laid all the cards on the table. Illegal schemes to buy land. Manipulations. A conspiracy with Gregory to deceive the owners. The entire town was shocked. Victor tried to deny everything, but the evidence was irrefutable. In the end, the local authorities escorted him out, exposed and humiliated. The town applauded Eitan, and Lena, sitting in the hall, felt a warm sense of pride in her chest. After the meeting, She found him on the street. You did the right thing, she said. I learned from the right woman, he replied. Lena smiled. Maybe. You really have changed, he stepped closer. Or maybe I just finally started listening to the right woman. They hugged. And for the first time in a long while, Lena felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. But before they could say anything more, Emily ran up to them. I have an idea. They both laughed. A few days later, Lena and Itan sat on the porch pondering. Who do you think sent that letter? Lena asked. I don't know, but we need to find out. They searched for several days until they found the answer. It was Mrs. Thompson, Lena's neighbor. When they confronted her face to face, she admitted with tears in her eyes. I sent the letter because I couldn't watch you suffer alone, Lena, and see Emily growing up without a father. You deserve the truth, and Itan deserves to know. Lena hugged her neighbor tightly. Deeply touched, thank you for everything. Itan also thanked her, realizing that this woman had changed his life. And for the first time, everything finally seemed to fall into place. The weeks that followed became the happiest in Lena's life in many years. Itan officially moved to Willow Creek, dividing his time between the farm and remotely managing the last affairs of his company in New York. He handed over most of his responsibilities and focused on what truly mattered. The three of them fell into a natural rhythm, as if it had always been this way. I promise, I'll face every storm by your side. Then yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her into a kiss. From the window, Emily's voice rang out. Finally! They pulled away, laughing. Emily ran out onto the porch and jumped into their arms. We're getting married. We're getting married. Lena hugged her daughter and Ethan, feeling as though everything had finally fallen into place. The next month flew by in a whirlwind of preparations. Lena insisted on a simple wedding at the farm, just with close friends and neighbors. Emily helped pick flowers and decorations, insisting on being the flower girl. I'll be the one throwing petals, she announced proudly. You'll be throwing petals or throwing them at someone? Lena asked suspiciously. I'll throw them gently. I promise. Ethan helped wherever he could, but mostly marveled at how thoroughly Lena was planning everything. The day before the wedding, as Lena finished the final touches, the postman arrived with a letter. She grabbed it absent-mindedly, but then stopped when she saw the sender. New York, the seal, from a law firm. Lena slowly opened the letter and began to read. Her face went pale. Ethan, standing outside, noticed the change. Lena, what's wrong? She looked up, holding the letter in trembling hands. It's about the company. About Gregory. What about it? Lena handed him the letter, and blood froze in Ethan's veins as he read. He read the letter twice, trying to make sense of it. The company had been sold. All his shares, all his rights. Everything had been transferred to an investment fund for a hefty sum, and a large portion of the profits had already been transferred to the account of Lena's farm. Lena stared at him, confused. Ethan, what does this mean? He took a deep breath. It means I sold my stake in the company. What? I sold it 2 weeks ago. Before Gregory could push me out, I sold everything and transferred half the profits to the farm's account. Lena was speechless. Why? Ethan took her hands in his. Because I don't want that life anymore. I don't want New York meetings and corporate games. I want this. You, Emily, the farm. I want Willow Creek to be our future, not just our past. Tears filled Lena's eyes. But this is everything you built. No, he gestured around them. This is everything I've built. The rest is money, and money doesn't build a family. Lena pressed herself tightly against him. You're impossible, I know. But now I'm your impossible. She laughed through her tears. The wedding day dawned bright and sunny. The farm was decorated simply but beautifully. Wildflowers, white ribbons on trees, wooden chairs arranged in the garden. The whole village had gathered. Mrs. Patterson cried in the front row. Mrs. Thompson helped with the final touches. Neighbors, friends, even the local shop owner had come. Ethan stood by a small makeshift altar, dressed in jeans, a white shirt, and his old work hat, the one he usually wore out in the fields. Jennifer, his former assistant, had flown in from New York. I never thought I'd see you swap your suit for a farmer's hat, she joked. Me neither, Ethan smiled. But here I am, the music began to play. First, Emily appeared in a simple pink dress, carefully scattering petals down the aisle with mathematical precision. Ethan smiled, touched by the moment. Then Lena appeared. She was wearing a simple white cotton dress that came to her knees, her feet in worn brown work boots. Ethan burst out laughing. What? You thought I'd wear heels on the grass? Wouldn't expect anything else from you. This is a beautiful, heartfelt story about love, redemption, and the power of family. It's a perfect blend of suspense, emotion, and personal growth. The journey of Ethan and Lena, from heartbreak to reconciliation, from loss to rediscovery, is so moving and satisfying. The moment they choose each other and build a life together is truly touching. Especially the theme of love being a constant that doesn't rely on money or status. The symbolism of the lavender fields and the idea that love blooms year-round adds a poetic layer to their love story. The emotional weight of Ethan choosing Lena and her daughter over his career shows true transformation, making this not just a romance but a story about what truly matters in life. The wedding scene, with the community's support and the simple, intimate celebration, really drives home the message that love doesn't need extravagance to be real. It just needs commitment and sincerity. And Emily's little touch, calling Ethan her real dad in the family picture at the end, was a perfect way to show how much everything had changed. It's a story of second chances and the beauty of choosing love over everything else. If I were to rate this story, I'd give it a solid 9/10. The emotional depth, character development, and meaningful messages were spot on, though I would have loved a bit more focus on their post-wedding life. Maybe a glimpse of how they continue to build their future together. What do you think? Would love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the story, and be sure to subscribe for more.